Friends, it's that time of year again when we examine just how much last year's trip to the United Nations Climate Change Conference cost the Canadian taxpayer, as we hurtle towards the next UN climate change conference. Every year, so many of the people who tell us that we need to park our SUVs and ride a bike everywhere to stem the rising tides of the ocean or to prevent the earth from boiling us alive, well, they take private jets and then limos or executive town cars around a cosmopolitan city somewhere in the world, all in the name of fighting climate change. And largely, the Canadian taxpayers on the hook for all the Canadians that go at the request or invitation of the federal government. Now, to get the data about just how much these UN globalist events cost you, I have to file access to information requests across multiple ministries because multiple ministries send dozens, sometimes hundreds of people to these things. Again, all in the interest of fighting climate change they tell me is caused by unnecessary fossil fuel travel. Global Affairs always sends people, sometimes finance sends people, natural resources sometimes sends people, and then, the individual provinces also send a bunch of people too. But environment and climate change generally leads the way. Now, I can show you how much environment and climate change spent to go to their week-long climate catastrophist cabal party that took place in Glasgow, Scotland last November. We're able to do this through your generous crowd-funded donations to a very special research website, rebelinvestigates.com. So let me thank everybody who makes this important work possible. Now, based on the data before me here, these people spent $792,000 in expenses, including nearly $250,000 in flights alone and $11,000 in other travel. That's a lot of flights and, quote, other travel when we're supposed to be worried about the end of all life as we know it in 12 years or 8 years or whatever their doomsday clock has us at today. By my calculations at this one ministry, they sent 52 people in total, 31 direct employees of environment and climate change or of the government, and another 21 so-called stakeholder busybodies looking for a free trip to Glasgow. So much of this is unnecessary. In addition to Stephen Guilbeault, the Environment and Climate Change Minister, and all the government staff, and even opposition MPs like Jagmeet Singh for some reason, Canadian taxpayers also paid a bunch of anti-Canadian environmentalists to be there, including Ariel Deranger, who's been leading the charge against the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion project. That's the very pipeline the federal government spent billions to buy, telling people they bought the thing to get around the opposition to build it. But based on who they're taking to these climate change conferences, the feds probably bought that pipeline to kill it. Ariel Deranger lobbied against Canadian projects and Canadian jobs, and then the Canadian government sends her to Glasgow to represent us. I guess it's good work if you can get it. Now, how do you at home feel knowing you've been put on the hook for $750,000 to send these carbon taxing hypocrites and anti-Canadian activists across the world to lobby against Canadian jobs? For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn-Reid. Today's story was made possible through your generous crowdfunding donations to a very special research website, rebelinvestigates.com. We don't get any money from the federal government. We wouldn't take it and we would not ask for it. We rely on the support of you at home to do the work that we do to hold the government to account. If you'd like to help us keep this project going, consider making a donation at that website I just mentioned, rebelinvestigates.com.